Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. Just to let you know, we're recording this webinar, so we have got the lines muted and we'll reopen them at the end so you can ask any questions you'd like to. Today we're going to be covering some of the new features of System Platform 2017. If you haven't already seen, we've hosted a few webinars on System Platform 2017 because there's an awful lot that is coming in this release. This is specifically related to the maps and the SCADA Playback functionality, and I've also included a little bit about Historian Insight in there as well. But there are lots more features, so if you're interested, have a look at some of the webinars. Just to start with, I thought still always relevant to just mention what System Platform is in a couple of slides for those people that aren't aware. So it is our enterprise SCADA solution. It's a case of being able to define your plant model, so it's a much more structured approach to a SCADA solution rather than the standard tag-based HMIs that we've all become used to. It makes for a much logical representation of us being able to propagate changes down to the system, makes it much more scalable for creating extra lines or doing multi-site rollouts. It is one of our flagship products. In terms of standardization, Wonderware have been providing a lot more details to our software solution out there so that we can get much more out-of-the-box functionality. So you're probably aware of the Orchestra graphics by now. They've been around for many years. As part of some of the latest releases, they introduced things like situational awareness graphics. So these allow you to drop graphics on the screen and be able to get something out of your system without actually having to do that much configuration. And they've done it rather than just creating graphics, they've done it in quite a clever way with being able to do wizards so you can choose how those graphics are displayed. With this release, they started to do that with the objects themselves. And also being able to provide an ISO 106 library as well out of the box. So in theory, you should be able to get 80% of your development work out of the box. It is a content management solution system platform, so you can add as you go along, and I've already taught to that to some degree. But it's about being able to bring in things like IT systems into the OT world, and I will talk to that a little bit more later on. It's also extremely good at large-scale software developments, and some of that, and these are probably trends you've heard before, some of the market trends like the people, processes, and technology. And when it comes to SCADA solutions, you're probably looking more towards the technology, or being the outrunner with that. So your technology needs to be good to be able to enable your people to do these and carry out these processes like the large-scale developments. Like being able to, for example, migrate to a later version with zero downtime through deployment. Wonderware and making these types of things possible through the SCADA solutions or through the system platform environment. It's also got endless possibilities. So, what is your vision? I've got there. So, where would you like it to go? What other things would you like to add onto the system to be able to get more out of your information? And not to forget that this is best-in-class commercial off-the-shelf software. So you're not having to do loads of bespoke coding in the back end to be able to get what you need out of it. It's an out-of-the-box solution. And Wonderware pride themselves on making sure these products are easy to use. We've never been tied to a PLC vendor. They're constantly making sure you can migrate from the earliest versions right up to the latest. And they're doing great work in alleviating that skills gap, because you can standardize so well with a solution like this. You no longer need to provide training, multi-site, etc., etc. And in terms of some of that extensibility that we've mentioned before, and you've probably seen this slide many a time, you can add bolt-ons to the product once you've got it in place to allow you to deliver things like MES solutions, to get your overall equipment efficiency, batch management, be able to go mobile. We can do that with our SCADA for quite some time, and becoming even easier, doing things like alarm analysis and the like, and there's lots more. But the reason I've really put that up there is because it leads quite nicely into today, and the way they're making it extensible in slightly different ways. So they're doing that by adding applications to this latest release. So you're probably already aware now that they've released InTouch OMI, or they're releasing InTouch OMI with this as a new client, and it's all new technology. If you're not familiar with that, then I urge you to look at some of the other webinars. But what they're doing with that is, rather than just providing like a basic SCADA package where you import your own ActiveX or .NET controls, they're actually providing applications out of the box. So Historian Insight came as part of a previous Historian release, but what they've done at this release is, as part of InTouch OMI, release an application that allows you to just drop it on the screen and then it will be configured for you. You don't need to do any bespoke configuration to drop that into the interface, and I'll be showing you a video of that shortly. Historical and SCADA Playback, you've probably again heard of this, referred to in quite a few ways. Again, it's another application that they developed, so it's something that we drop onto the screen, and it's a seamless transition to be able to replay history on your SCADA screen. And then finally, maps as well. So the maps are a great way to display your data in a different way. The same information you've perhaps been displaying in your current SCADA or system platform environment, but in something that everybody understands how to use a map. So particularly in disparate sites or multi-sites, infrastructure markets, it's really ideal for that type of thing. So if we just start with the Historian Insight product, and this is, for those of you that aren't aware, it's a new user interface to your Historian data, and it's a completely out-of-the-box solution, so there's no configuration for this trend at all, or this interface at all. And I'll show you a bit of a demo of that shortly. You may have seen the Wonderware Online Insight, which is essentially the same client. The difference is that this is just a local on-premise solution for those people that don't want to push the data out to a cloud environment. So if we start, and this next video will show you some of the capabilities of the single sign-on that they're producing with this. So by logging into your InTouch OMI application, that will allow it to automatically pass the same credentials to these third-party applications that we're dropping into the system, this Historian Insight, and automatically log you into there as well. So hopefully you'll get a feel for that. So what we're going to do now is just launch our new application. When it loads, this is the new interface. This is a demo application that comes with, and I'm just going to sign into the application as the administrator. I've just got a blank password there, which is very secure. Then I'm going to go over to my navigation pane and load my Insight interface. And what we see then is it's effectively the web front end to our Historian Insight client tool. And for those, like I say, that aren't aware, this is a very casual user interface, so I can then just search there on Reactor. I'm going to just drop 4 tags into this trend because there's 4 tags associated with that reactor, and you can search on a multitude of things and it'll always pull back results for you, engineering units for example. And here I'm changing the time to an hour's worth of data, so it's very quick and it's very intuitive. This is just a summary table or a status board, but I'm actually going to change now to a line chart instead to show those values in a line. I can add and remove tags as I see fit to make it obviously more clear. I can save these trends or put it into a dashboard. There's, again, lots of capabilities with this. I'm going to change it now to a column chart, and at the moment it's showing the average per hour. But what I'm going to do is change that to the total per hour. So you see just the way that it manipulates data, and it's very, very quick and very, very sharp in the way it does that. But the point about this is about the single sign-on. It's obviously the local on-premises Historian Insight, and then it's the how it's configured. So this next video we'll show you how we configure that in the back end. So if we go into the IDE, so it's something you're probably familiar with, and I'm going to open my InTouch View app. And inside of here, you'll see, if I just click on the same navigation item on the left-hand side, my Insight one, with this new interface, and it will show the Insight chart control in the middle there. Then I'm just going to bring up the properties for that control, and you'll see on the right-hand side we have the properties for the Historian Insight, and it's pre-configured with the default login details. Obviously, if you're doing that over a network, or if you're changing the port that you want to access that on, then you'd change it in here. But it gives you things like chart duration, include the different types of tags. So these are attributes that are associated with the Historian Insight client control itself. They're just embedded inside of a nice, easy-to-use application that I'm just dropping into my InTouch OMI app. Just a very easy-to-use solution. Now, if we move on to the next two, so I'm going to start with SCADA Playback, but before I do, I wanted to just mention a bit more about Archestra Graphics, because the idea of Archestra Graphics that came in a long time ago were really developing our customer base to be able to leverage their existing investment as you start to move through these versions. So if you have already got Archestra Graphics in a system platform environment, you can take a lot of what you've got there and just drag these applications in and make them new again. You can almost like revive them, give them more capability and functionality. And I'll show you exactly how. So the SCADA Playback is, like I say, it's this application. It's about giving more to those Archestra Graphics that already potentially exist. So to start with, I'm just going to show you another video that shows the interface without SCADA Playback enabled at this point, and I'm going to show you how easy it is to enable that and show the same details. So as a bit of a round through this, you can see we've got sliding panes there. This is just showing you the interface really. And if you're on a touch screen, I mean, I'm obviously using a desktop here, so it's got the little tabs to be able to access that. But if you're doing it through a touch screen, then you can use gestures. So you'd use 3 fingers to swipe across the screen to bring in these panels. But here, this is where I want to focus on the SCADA Playback. So we can see some values on the screen. At the moment, there's nothing enabled, so we can just see those values changing. And what I'm going to show you in this next video is how we implement the SCADA Playback, and it will then use those same graphics, but show us some more. So you see here, what I'm doing is opening a layout. So the layouts are, if you've not seen the other webinars, then the layouts are the way that you configure the content for your display. I've added a sliding pane at the bottom, and then on the toolbox on the right-hand side, I'm going to just search for playback. We've got search functionality in here, and I can see my application, and all I'm going to do is drag that to that sliding pane at the bottom. I can see it's smaller than the sliding pane that I've set, so I'm just going to resize it. As simple as that. And that's the SCADA Playback configured. So all I'm going to do is save and check that object in, and then I'm going to redeploy those changes. So long as my Archestra Graphics are running and so long as they are storing data to the historian, my SCADA Playback will automatically know how to reference the historical data for those tags. It's literally as simple as that. So I'm going to then launch this application again after it being redeployed. I'm going to go to the same place that I went to before, so you can see the same Archestra Graphics on the screen. You see them all working there, and we've got a lot of historical data in there. And now I'm just going to enable my SCADA Playback by the new sliding pane I've just created. So once I do that, I mean, it defaults to a time frame, but I'm going to set a time frame for the last half an hour, so it shows it in a neater way. Just change the 2 to input. So I'm just clicking on the input, time user input at the bottom. And you can see all the values are paused at the moment, so I've just played them and it'll play at normal speed. What I'm then going to do is speed up that retrieval so that I can actually see it in a much faster time, so you can start to see the values move much more quickly than they were doing before. And it just goes through that SCADA playback for that time period. And then what I'm going to do is slow it down. I'm going to pause it again, and you can see me dragging through that different time to, and all the values jump to the different places depending on where I've stopped on that timeline. And again, this is just an out-of-the-box application, and very, very simple to use, but gives you a lot more from your orchestra graphics. And then finally, I just wanted to cover a bit about the new maps. And the maps are the HTML5 technology. And again, it's the same principle, so it's about orchestra graphics. So yes, in previous SCADA solutions, you'd be able to drop a map onto the screen, but it would likely be some sort of picture, a JPEG, a bitmap, and then you drop the graphics on screen, and there'd be no interaction amongst that, or you wouldn't be able to change anything, and it certainly won't be interactive. So again, I've got a couple of videos, and I'm launching my application again, and this time, instead of going to some of the other elements, I'm going to show you navigating to the map element of it. There's some really cool things you can do with this as well, which I'll show you. So you can see it'll load our map of the world. We've got orchestra graphics on the screen. You can see it's even showing us the alarms that are associated with it. I've zoomed in a little bit, and this is using my mouse wheel at the moment, but we can also add overlays. So here I can actually show, in the US there, what's the rainfall and whereabouts is it going to lie. Same with temperature. As I zoom in more into this environment, my orchestra graphic would change to something else. So I have the ability to change the actual orchestra graphic I'm showing depending on the zoom level that I'm at. And I'll zoom out and show that in a bit more detail on some orchestra graphics that exist somewhere else. So we also have some set in France. And this time I'm just going to zoom in by using the plus and minus in the top left instead. And you can see straight away, rather than just going from a single orchestra graphic, I've jumped into 3 different types, and they're obviously overlaid, not perfectly, but we can change that longitude and latitude if we wanted to. But we also have a much natural navigation, so from here, rather than it just being an orchestra graphic on screen, I can actually click on that building 2 there, and it'll take me straight to the page inside of my SCADA to show me exactly where the problem lies, and exactly what I need to do with it. So if we then just jump into the next video, which shows how you would actually configure this. So again, if I just close my app, go into the IDE, we're going to look at the graphic toolbox, because this is where the applications reside. See, I've got apps listed under here. What I'm going to do is just click on my map app that exists there, and it'll load again an intuitive user interface. Here I can choose the type of maps that I want to use, so it's using OpenStreetMaps for the map, but I could change that to Bing if I wanted to. You can see the properties. There aren't many properties to change because it is an easy user interface. In terms of the overlays that you saw previously as well, these are done using WMS. So it doesn't have to be their own. You can configure these yourself, providing you have the right source URL, and you just configure that in the properties there. Then if we jump into the zoom layers, and this is what I was referring to with regards to how we segregate out our orchestra graphics. So you can see we've got a whole host of things there. We've got the names like continent and country, and at what zoom level it jumps back down to that level. And then if we move on to locations, this is where we actually drop our orchestra graphics in. So you can see we've got the name of the graphic. The layer is where we want the orchestra graphic to exist. So, you know, the country or the city, what we were referring to in terms of the zoom layer, that's how we define that. Then all we have to define is a latitude and longitude position. And all I'm going to do now is show you how easy it is to actually drag another orchestra graphic in there. So I've gone to my assets, I've got an orchestra graphic at the bottom, I've dragged it in, I'm choosing the layer that I want it to display at, and I'm just configuring the latitude and longitude. And then I save that, and it will update that map for me. So again, another simple user interface to use, but again, getting much more out of your orchestra graphics. And it isn't going to stop there. I mean, some of the many benefits of doing something like this is that actually applications can be released without having to provide a full QA, fully tested system platform release. You can actually get much more out of it, and you can also develop your own because it's using WPF and WCF technologies, Windows Presentation Foundation and Windows Communication Foundation as the base technology to be able to deliver this. So it's, you know, using things like Visual Studio to be able to get more out of it, and you can do that yourselves. So just to summarise, we've covered you know, 3 of the applications that are coming. There is a camera app that is going to exist with that release as well. It's got things like the alarms built in, as you'd imagine. There's a alarm advisor application that's coming, which just drops the same, again, the product that we've already got available to us, but it's just a case of dropping in, very similar to Historian Insight. The SCADA Playback is a huge plus. I mean, we've even engineered it ourselves in the past with InTouch and Historian, but it is not an easy task. This just makes it really seamless and really easy to use. And then things like the maps, again, it just enables us to get a much more intuitive view out of our system. And then just as a final close, I suppose some of our System Platform 2017 key benefits, because I have referenced it quite a lot. What we're talking about here is an easy-to-build solution. Something that you build it once and deploy it on a device. You build in orchestra graphics once, and you can use that content in multiple ways. We've just shown how we can use it with, you know, the playback and the maps in different ways. But build it once and deploy on any device. You know, go down to a smartphone if you want. It's content abstraction from the device we're running on. We're not tied to resolutions anymore, and you can obviously always, in this release, develop different monitor screen sizes in a single development environment. There's many more pre-built standards in there as well. It enforces obviously consistency and standards across the board, across multi-sites. It's easy to use. It's the easiest system platform version ever to use. If you've not seen it already, the migration and the natural navigation application that comes with it, as to that swiping pane from the side that you saw, where it's a natural navigation of your plant model. So it allows you to easily navigate around without actually having to do much engineering effort at all in terms of your InTouch or My application. And then it's easy to own, so you can easily make changes. It's easy to maintain the system, and you're minimizing the downtime. And you're also, through lesser training and with a smaller, you know, you're reducing that skills gap as well. You're able to find the root cause analysis much quicker, because you can highlight the problem much quicker, especially in the many ways we can do that. So what I'm going to do now is just open the lines and see if there's any questions. Is there any questions?
Hi, Andy. You were talking about the playback functionality earlier, and I'm just wondering if it's possible to pass the to and from date-time parameters to that dynamically from possibly a works order or something like that. So the user doesn't have to sort of fish around. They can click on a specific works order, and they can play back the entire works order, just the click of a button.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, that'd certainly be a neat way of doing it. I'd have to check the properties of the playback to see that. I haven't thought about that, to be honest.
Okay.
But I can certainly check that. What's your name? Sorry, just so I can.
It's Greg Hobbs.
Okay. I thought I recognised your voice. Yeah, that's a good point. I'll certainly have a look into that for you.
Great, thanks.
Is there any other questions? Okay. Just as a last thing, we are showing much more of the System Platform 2017 release and many other things as well. We're in our Roadshow, so we've already run 3 of them. We're on to the last one next month still. We're still on the 31st, aren't we? So yeah, next month in June. And this final one's in Scotland. And if you go to our website, you can get full details of it. But that's just a snippet there of the morning agenda, which is presentation based around, like I say, System Platform, operational big data with IoT. We've even got Schneider Electric in there with some of their smart devices and some of their PLC devices at the bottom end. And the afternoon session is actually all about hands-on, so hands-on with the product. We're doing that with Sim Manager, with System Platform, and the SciTech is obviously SciTech SCADA is a different product that we have a overview of, so it's watching an overview with one of our pre-sales consultants. Then I'd just like to thank you very much for your time, and if there is any other questions, just get in touch to our website. Thank you very much.